Moving the needle on founder failure, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Lucas Poles, and welcome to Startup 2.0 by Spark XYZ. Join us each week as we give you access to some of the top investors and entrepreneurs around the country to help you think through and overcome some of the top challenges that startups face.
I think there's no better place in the country to be investing than Los Angeles.
What is the problem that you're solving and for who? Like, what is that specific pain point?
Sometimes when a company is not listening to its customers and just thinks it knows better than its customers, has a really, really hard time finding product market fit.
I want to see somebody that isn't going to stop. You know, this person, you just feel like they're gonna make it work.
Tim, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
So you've done some amazing things in your career. You're currently managing director of the CSUN Incubator, and so we'll end up diving into that. But I guess first, as we before we dive into some of the red flags that founders face, would love to find out a little bit more about you and your background, and just a nice high-level overview.
Sure. So I was a failed scientist. Like your first love is, for me, it's molecular biology, molecular immunology. So I went to grad school for that, and my advisor was running out of money. He says, just go get an MBA. I can offload your stipend on the business school. So I did. And boy, you talk about culture shock. You have, this is a long time ago, but you had very conservative business school culture and a very liberal medical school culture. And I just had to know who my audience was walking between the two. Long story short, I left there and got a job with Bayer Corporation, working in their pharmaceuticals and ultimately diagnostics group.
Nice. Awesome. So then let's, how did you end up at CSUN?
It's been a long, strange trip. Bayer Corporation, that thing, we were able to grow the product line. I ultimately took over as managing director for a brand of then and we were killing it. And right around the time we asked them to build a factory for us, they loved us. And then they sold us because we were asking for money. But it gave me some early exposure to, hey, here's how valuations work. Here's what we really care about. And it's not the sound bites, but different audiences have different considerations. And it was great to be exposed to that and build a foundation from the customer to the technology, to the revenue line, to the shareholders, stakeholders. And I'll never forget that experience. So I go from there. That business got sold, but I went to work for Motorola in a startup. Mm-hmm. They'd acquired some technology out of Caltech. And so my role there was, commercialization and business development. So ultimately we got that through FDA before Motorola decided they didn't want to be in life sciences anymore. The cell phone market was a little bit touchy back then. So then I went to work for an investment bank, did that for a couple of years, then worked for another startup, then started doing my own startups, worked at USC in tech transfer. So, if you want to try to put an organizational theme behind this, it was trying to click off just the different sections. Yeah. How do you finance a venture? What's the R&D? It was great work at USC, uncovering not every patent is a good patent. Mm-hmm. What are the countries? How do you argue claim sets? How do you get down to that nitty gritty? And does it really protect anything that's worth protecting from a commercial perspective? How do you raise money? How do you put together a team? How do you make teams accountable? So after those sort of experiences, I started doing my own startups. Did one in, it was a therapeutic for food allergies, and another one in cell separation for CAR T therapies. So now moving into CSUN and running the incubator, it's sort of a natural growth, because having done it a couple times in a non-academic fashion, right? There's a lot of people teaching theory, but what I really enjoy is pointing people and saying, you got to go see this guy. He's going to talk to you about this. You got to go to this group. They're going to talk to you about funding like this. And here's what you're going to have ready beforehand. And if you're not ready for that, don't burn this contact. Don't do it too soon. And the beautiful part of this is CSUN's been a fantastic stream of people who are hungry. And I think the hustle that they show, the hunger that they show is really what keeps me juiced every day.
That's true. I've been fortunate to work with some people that you were fortunate to work with, and a lot of hustle out of CSUN, and something I greatly appreciate out of there. So I guess jumping to the next question. So you mentioned, I guess you touched on a little bit, the academic kind of theory versus reality, right? So how maybe is a university incubator going to differ from one that is actually in the ecosystem? And then we're going to dive into a little bit more around what you think some of the pros and cons of theory versus reality kind of offer.
Yeah, so it kind of depends on where your own mind is, right? There are kinesthetic learners, right? And these are people who need laboratory practice. They have to feel it in their hands and in their bodies. Some people can learn perfectly fine, butts in seats, reading what's up on the board, and never having to apply it. But I think the idea from the university's perspective is to address all types of learners. Mm-hmm. And even if they're not going to put it into practice today, what really sinks it into their heart and soul for the long term, so that when the opportunity arises sometime in the future, you're like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. So we've been the university, the business school, Nazarian School of Business and Economics specifically, has been putting together programs, both undergraduate and graduate, and some of them, they're very, very new. They're very, very cutting edge. And as soon as you start thinking, wow, we'll see how things respond, people they absorb it. They attack it. And I think that builds a thirst then that says, hey, I wasn't really sure about this at first. And then we find all these students moving in, developing their own ventures, and coming into the incubator, coming into our I-Core programming, the summer accelerator. So it's been great.
Yeah, no, that's honestly, it's a really good point, because I hadn't really thought about it that way, where I'm personally a learner where I have to do it. I have to try it. I have to be in it. If I'm staring at something on the board, audible learning for me is just awful. In and out. So the idea of actually getting your hands to it and trying it out.
Well, think about chemistry labs, biology labs, you're dissecting stuff, chemistry labs, you're blowing things up, physics labs, engineering labs. These are things where the personal power of observation and setting up and asking the what if questions. Okay, well, now we can do this in a business setting. And if you look at I-Core, it's the National Science Foundation program, they even approach it from a scientific hypothesis. Pose a hypothesis, now, set up the experiment, and you conduct the experiment by interviewing statistically relevant numbers of people out in the field.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's hard, but perfect.
That's true. It's, what do you think maybe are some of the downsides of that? And so when you're, because even with I-Core and being able to, the idea of the business model canvas and being able to go out and actually interview these people, I feel like it can be challenging to get the right information. I know that when I did business model canvas before when I was at SC, that a lot of the time you can end up getting the answers that you're looking for rather than the actual answers that you should be getting. And so there are specific challenges. Is that one of the downsides? Are there ways to get better or be, I would say not better because it's not necessarily better. It's just more, I don't know, being able to interview people without forcing them down the path that you want.
Okay, so look, you nailed the biggest one there, right? Which is, I have an ugly baby, but I want you to tell me my baby is beautiful. And so if you tell me my baby is ugly, you were the wrong interview.
Yeah.
And even so we work a lot about interview methods and posing neutral hypotheses. And honestly, for the first 20 to 30, you don't even get to talk about your baby.
Yeah.
You got to understand what their needs and ultimately what you want your baby to do for them. That's a big one. The first 2 years, and this is like true confessions, we had a big number of people trying this. We also had a lot of people dropping out. And it was the usual discussions, right? So I'm not afraid to go talk to people afterwards. I don't take it as a personal affront, but like, hey, why did you drop out? Well, we had problems with this, we had problems with that. And ultimately, a lot of them were learning that their idea wasn't valid. But enough of them, and this was my aha moment, were saying it was just too hard to get those interviews from the right people. So for the next couple of years, I started putting together groups on LinkedIn, make sure everybody's got a profile. We put together CSUN Venture Advisors, people who would be, hey, I am a willing guinea pig and I will open up my network of people just because you're in this program at CSUN. Protopia does another one called Ask a Matador. Basically, it's let's create as many avenues for you to get external facts and data from the real world and get those stupid assumptions out of your head.
Yeah.
So you can't put old heads on young bodies, but we can make the learning ramp a little bit easier for them to access. Mm-hmm. So there's some of it. We have some other issues that we kind of deal with, but I'll say those were the biggest ones just to get people moving.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. Do you ever? I've seen some people starting to kind of adopt this, and maybe it's past the conversation phase on the let's kind of test before we invest any money, right? So like, let's actually throw up like a Squarespace website for $7 and see if we can actually get people to put down their credit card, because that to me is one of the bigger factors, because even if you do the interviews, you might end up getting the false positives, and it's like, okay, well, cool, give me your credit card information. Like if you think if it's actually a problem and you think that this is a vitamin or this is a painkiller versus a vitamin, then okay, cool. Here's a website. Let me get a pre-order going forward. Has that approach started entering the university ecosystem or not yet?
It definitely has.
Cool.
And here's the telling thing. A couple of years ago, we just used to talk about it and I'd point the way. Mm-hmm. And only a couple people walked forward and did it. Now I'm like, here it is. If you've progressed past this point, I want you, in order to keep this program going, you have to put this up. Don't worry about the money. I'll cover the money. You just have to put in your time.
Yeah.
And if you won't do that, well, now I smell a rat.
Yeah. That's a good touch on them too. Oh God. All right, awesome. No, I mean that's super encouraging, because it's it can be, I don't know, to me that's one of the bigger the challenges that I see with early stage entrepreneurs is that I'm like, look, they're like, oh, well, I need to hire a dev team and I need to do this. I'm like, no, you don't. One of my favorite portfolio companies literally ran their company. They were up to 30K MRR, and they had a website and then they had an Excel file on the back end, and they were just doing it entirely manually because they're like, we didn't want to invest money into this because we didn't know if it was going to actually work. And so started working, they raised money with it, and then they started actually building the product. I don't think, I think that too many entrepreneurs now are faced with like, oh, I have to do all of this first, and then I can try doing the other stuff later. It's like, if you have traction, if you have revenue, it's a way different story to be able to tell to an investor.
So, and think about all the other great things that come from this, right? Because, okay, we put our website together and we put it out there. Oh, wait, now we got to talk about marketing and driving people to the website.
Yep.
Oh, but why don't I just buy some, Facebook ads or all these different ads? Oh, because you don't have any money.
Yeah.
Okay, so how are you going to do it?
Oh my God.
And every day it's like, I love the analogies to the movie The Martian.
Mm-hmm.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Here's your resources. Okay, it's too hard, you won't do it. There are 10 people in line behind you who are willing to do it. And that's where grit and hustle matter. If you're easily frustrated, if you've got, the $100,000 investment banking job waiting for it, yeah, you should go do that, because this is really hard work.
Yeah, this is one of the toughest things that you'll end up doing for sure. No, and I like that approach too, because way too many times do I see in pitch decks like, oh, our go-to-market strategy is Facebook ads and Instagram ads. I'm like, that's not a go-to-market strategy. Like, as much as I appreciate that, like, I want to see the growth hacking for you to be able to prove that this actually works, and then sure, you can start dumping money into marketing, but not yet. Like, you need to show me there's a big enough problem that people are out there looking for it, that you can figure out a way to reach them without spending money. Because then you'll start developing channel partnerships and a bunch of the things that you had never thought about. And all of a sudden, you have much more exponential growth than you did if you're like, oh, we're just going to buy Facebook ads. Like, that's, if it was that easy, anyone would have done it. Like,
So, and look, and this brings it back full circle to the interviews. If you say, oh, these people are too hard to reach to interview, well, you're never going to sell to them, man.
No.
If you can't figure out where they live, how they behave, what really floats their boat, forget it.
Yeah, no, it's true. 100%. So no, I appreciate that approach for sure. Awesome. So I guess let's talk about the less big elephant in the room now, but what we've been going through for the last year. So let's talk about COVID, and I guess let's bring it back maybe to some of the stuff that we talked about earlier before we actually jumped on. How has it actually affected the students within the university from an entrepreneur standpoint, positive and kind of negative?
So, look, I know COVID has been terrible for huge swaths of the economy and population, but from where we stand in terms of the numbers of people and the types of people that we're getting, first of all, here's the baseline that I hold myself accountable to. CSUN has 40,000 students, and about, I'll say 70% of them are Latino. It's a Hispanic serving institution. 50% of them are female. 70% of them are Pell eligible, which means family income somewhere in the range of 20 to 40,000. Mm-hmm. We also have the largest population of deaf and hard of hearing students at any four-year public university.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy. Wow. So typically, VC-backed entrepreneurs, they're 95% white, they're 90% male, they're STEM background, 90%, and they all generally have a background or connections. They know how this is done. So for me, that's the delta. But for my programs, if all I'm doing is pulling out the same demographics as being done at the private four-year research schools, then I'm not really moving the needle. I need to move CSUN students. So that's my obsession with kind of tracking and demographics. And I'm just thrilled that when COVID struck, we had to cancel the summer accelerator. Planning was already well underway. We'd accepted teams, but the university wasn't letting anybody on campus, and we hadn't set up any different ways to manage it yet. Mm-hmm. So come the fall, we've got a bunch of things in place, and we, digital marketing for us, marketing our programs and doing the outreach. And in the fall, I was able to bring in the biggest class ever. And then the demographics were fantastic. I was able to get demographics more in line with the CSUN average. So this last round that I finished up in the spring, we have 60% of our students in that cohort were from Pell eligible families. They're working, right? But they're still doing this program because they appreciate it. We don't give academic credit. They're doing this because this is a way out for them, and they sense it intuitively. So for me, it's been very, very gratifying. I'm able to do more programs and reach more people in the off hours, really tailor it around their needs, and people are responding really, really well to it.
No, that's super encouraging. I guess the online, the Zoom meetings has helped flatten, I guess, the curve a little bit from that standpoint, and just from accessibility, because you're right. I think people that kind of go into that hybrid entrepreneurship kind of model where they are working and they're still trying to do something else, it can be, it can be tough to juggle both. And if you don't have to commute, especially in LA, it makes lives a lot easier.
There's one more feature of this, and this was from National Science Foundation. It had been a foundational item. Interviews have to be done in person. Well, they were faced with the same thing everyone else was, right? Oh my gosh, COVID, you can't do that. There are no conferences to go to. Yeah. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? Yeah. So I'm in touch with a lot of these folks, and they say the same sort of thing. They're seeing people, they may never go back to an in-person model again. And the interviews, the content and the quality of those interviews has only gone up because you're not burning time driving to this appointment and driving to that appointment. You can crank out, you're just more efficient this way.
Yeah. You're also going to get access to different people who you might not have been able to get access to previously, because it's time. If all of a sudden I'm not driving 3 hours a day, it means I have 3 hours of extra time where I can sit down and either chat with people or do other things. So, I agree. Awesome. So let's jump to, jump to a little bit around due diligence. So especially as you're kind of bringing these portfolio companies in to the actual program, walk us through the process of who you're actually looking for, whether it's that grit, that drive, but let's walk through some of the stuff that you are looking for and then some of the red flags.
So before CSUN, here's what I learned at USC, right? There's a lot of faculty members who would come in with inventions and say, yeah, we want you to spend $20,000 patenting this. And it's a lot of money, and there's no guarantee that they're going to pursue it. So when I was managing those portfolios, what I said was, well, look, you do X, Y, and Z first, low threshold items, and then I'll do A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And I'll write checks and I'll spend the money. And just by putting a couple prerequisites up front, over half of the requests went away. Right? And these are people who would have, gone to their grave saying, you're burying the best invention ever. Until I have to do something. Yeah. So for me, it's this sort of, it's not gatekeeping, right? So my strategy is I'm trying to build up an incubator that obviates the need for them to do a lot of fumbling around. I'm going to give them resources. I'm going to give them training and mentorship. but show me that you've done something. Show me that you've done a little bit. And so we have a number of on-ramp programs where short periods of time, you'll get together a 5-slide pitch deck. You'll have done a couple interviews. You'll have validated competition in some ways. Stuff that can all probably be done in 1 to 2 days.
Yeah.
But put in a little skin. And if they won't do that, that's a red flag. And if they do it poorly, that's a red flag. So, we've got a very wide funnel, right? I want to try to bring in as many teams as I can, because I can't fall prey to the same thing I'm pointing out for them. My crystal ball may not be any good. I want to make these programs accessible. We're trying to equip people for the future. My goal is not trying to make money. My goal is to equip people who are ready to learn and absorb.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't have somebody in there who's just kind of, I want to have, I just want to talk about this at cocktail parties, or it makes me feel good, or I'm kind of bored of television, so I'll hang out with you for a while. All bad reasons. All bad. So I think the diligence process amounts to an application in which they can clearly articulate what they've done, that they've hit any of some of the prerequisites beforehand. And like we do 10 weeks over the summer, I say, look, what you tell me, what can you accomplish in 10 weeks? And then I'll hold you to that.
Yeah.
So not my words, your words.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been pretty good so far.
Awesome. No, that's a good way to look at it. 100%. So let's jump to as they're in, I guess, the program. So in the program and after. So what are some of the challenges that they'll end up facing, or some of the mistakes that they end up running through? I know there's a lot.
Yeah. So look, it's Mark Twain who said, it ain't what you don't know, it's what you think you know that just ain't so. That'll get you. So, these assumptions that people are making, I got to raise money. Okay. What for? What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just need money. Get in line, buddy. So that, and then, getting people to think really quantitatively and in a granular fashion. So, I believe in the fundamentals of customer discovery, business model canvas, and rapid prototyping. Mm-hmm. And for this summer accelerator, we're kind of playing those backwards. We're going to start with the prototyping, because that'll drive them into cost of goods and okay, go get a quote from the vendor for these things. And that'll tell you why prototypes are so expensive in manufactured goods, with larger orders and deliveries, that your costs can drop.
Yeah.
But again, until you're in that, the first time through that, it's an epiphany. And the world seems really unfair, but there you go. We try to do other things, and this is where Spark XYZ has been really fantastic for us. Number one, getting them to commit to a profile that defines who they are, and not just the big marketing speak. No, you tell me who's your customer and the value you're going to provide for them, and then with that in hand, now you get access to these other programs. The free AWS credits, the discounted services, all those things, great. You can pick and choose if you can make a case that you actually need for it. And then all these other competitions.
Yeah.
So Spark XYZ has really done me a solid, because I used to have to spend a lot of time fishing for those things, organizing them, getting people to apply. And I said, look, dinner's served. Yeah. If you're hungry, come and get it.
Oh, that makes me happy. I appreciate that. I'm glad that we're out there helping.
In a dramatic fashion, because I said, look, this is just the tip of the iceberg. These competitions.
Yeah.
20 minutes of Googling, you might find one that's better for you. Oh, by the way, here's SBIR.gov. Here's these foundations that want to throw money at not-for-profits.
Yep.
Great, but you gotta get out into the world.
Yeah. No, it can be a good bridge, I guess, because there are, and that's also what I try to tell entrepreneurs is that if you don't have to raise venture capital, like don't raise venture capital. Like there's a lot of money out there that you don't have the less strings attached. I'll say that than with VC money, and especially for the rate, like if you can get a grant, if you can get $1 million grant, like that, I mean, that is your seed round. Like you get like 100% non-dilutive like equity. Like that's a very exciting thing where you're actually going to build and work through what you're actually doing. And yeah, to your point, with the foundations and everything else that is out there, there are a lot of resources that you can jump on, and a lot of people. It's very convoluted and it's very tough to find a lot of this stuff, and so it takes a lot of research. But yeah, 100% they are out there. But I agree. I've seen some of the other universities actually leverage the venture profile for similar matters, in that it's like, okay, here's where you start, and then here are all the additional sections that you're going to need to understand as you kind of progress through your actual venture. So you might not be thinking, like, you might have a great problem and solution. You might have a customer that's actually doing it, but your CAC and LTV, like, does that make sense? Because it just because it's a problem that you're actually solving, if the metrics don't make sense, like, there's no point in doing it because it's just, you can't execute on it. And so I'm glad that it's working out for you guys.
Well, and look, the VC money, it's great. It's a jet fuel, right?
Yeah.
But you better be fueling up a jet.
Yeah.
Otherwise, don't waste your time. Don't waste their time. You might have a really great sports car, but if you put jet fuel into a sports car, it's going to blow up. Maybe this first time around, you're looking for a lifestyle business. You're looking for, like, we've been able to help people who are working in the trades, and the same things apply, right? The discipline, the learning, be really cash smart, hustle, get out there. You don't need a lot of things, and yet all the benefits of this training still apply to them. Now, we've been fortunate. We've had a couple VC style firms get funded who came through our programs, and I am proud of them. But I'm just as proud as the other people who said, "Yeah, we got an SBA loan, and now instead of 2 people, I'm employing 20 people."
Yeah,
they're both wins.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that and I'm not sure why. Well, honestly, I mean, it's the tech media and everything else, but like, if I could have a lifestyle business that was generating like $10 million a year, like in profit, like what, like for some reason that is seen as negative versus like a $1 billion company that I own like 2% of for that's VC backed. It's like, well, like, yeah, yes and no. Like for some reason, lifestyle companies have gotten this negative connotation that they don't need venture money, and it's like, why? Like lifestyle businesses are the backbone of like this entire country. They are great businesses where you can generate, you can live, you can do very, very well. There is no reason to go down that path. And I love your analogy of the putting jet fuel in a sports car because it's true. I think that too many entrepreneurs are, especially at the early stage, like, yep, I need that jet fuel. And it's like, well, you have nothing to fuel, so what's the point? Yeah. No, it's a great piece.
But here's the thing too, right? Our economy is changing. Our economy is changing at rates unforeseen, right? So the old methodology was, well, we have these displaced industries and we're going to retrain and redeploy those workers into new areas. There's certain things that are coming, AI, machine learning, offshoring, sort of perfect storm. We're going to see more and more industries displaced, more and more workers who thought going into work today, everything's just fine. Oh, wait, I'm out of a job.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you've got a portfolio of, I'm getting income from this job, but I also have this as a side hustle. And I've got these 2 or 3 other things on the side so that, you know, you can either be the victim of change or you can drive the change yourself. Now, hey, my side hustle, turns out that's a really good business. I'm going to leave what I thought would always be my day job because I can sustain and control this, and I'll be happier doing it.
Yeah.
So emotional levels, personal income levels, macroeconomic levels, it helps. It's part of the overall solution.
No, I agree, definitely. It's an interesting point. The world is rapidly changing at this point, and yeah, a lot of people are going to be displaced, and they're going to need some help. So,
and one, I'll just use that as a launch board. So segments of society, right? The United States is fragmented politically, geographically, economically, educationally, and so specifically, you know, my passion is for taking people in low resource environments who justifiably have a lot of excuses. Well, you know, this and well that, and I'll take away all those excuses and say, look, if you're willing to walk forward, I will walk with you.
mm-hmm.
But you know, that was my attraction for CSUN, and as I've done work in Vietnam, like those people, you want to talk low resource? That's low resource.
Yeah.
But they have incredible hustle. You know, we were meeting. It was midnight their time, and I never had in any of the teams that I was mentoring, not one person missed one session, not one. And these are people with all the excuses in the world.
Yeah.
So this fall, we're going to do the same thing in South Africa, where we're targeting people in the townships and trying to get them started with something. And all it takes is a little bit of energy to create that spark, to get the fire going. And I think it's better for everyone globally, because, you know, if we can get these people who are traditionally underserved and moving them towards self-sufficiency, it creates value overall, but especially it creates value in that segment.
Yeah, no, very true. And honestly, there's a perfect place to leave it. So, Tim, appreciate you coming on the show. Look forward to another chat again soon. And yeah, thanks again.
Thanks.